They glimmer under spotlights and camera flashes, gold-plated, smiling, silent. The Oscar statuette has come to symbolize the very peak of creative success in Hollywood. For many, it represents legitimacy, recognition, and immortality. But behind the glamorous red carpet, the designer gowns, and the standing ovations lies a different kind of story, one that began not in celebration of art, but as a calculated move by studio executives to protect their power and suppress rising labor movements in Hollywood's early years. The Academy Awards weren't born to honor creativity, they were built to control it. In 1927, at the height of the silent film era's transition into sound, Hollywood was booming, but also boiling. Wages were being contested, labor unions were forming, and workers from across the filmmaking spectrum, actors, writers, set designers, editors, were pushing back against the dominance of the powerful studio heads. Louis B. Mayer, the all-powerful head of Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, MGM, saw the writing on the wall. Rather than allow unions to gain momentum, he devised something brilliant. He would create an organization that looked like a professional guild, but would be controlled by the studios themselves. That group became the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, a name that sounded lofty but hid its true intent. Mayer's words were clear. I found the best way to handle filmmakers was to hang medals all over them. Within months, Mayer's new academy planned its first official event, a private dinner and award ceremony to be held at the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel on May 16, 1929. The first Oscar ceremony lasted just 15 minutes. No live broadcast, no suspense. The winners had already been notified in advance. 15 men and women were given small golden statues in a hotel ballroom filled with industry insiders. Tickets cost $5. The whole affair had less to do with honoring the best in film and more to do with reinforcing the studio's internal pecking order. It was a PR move, plain and simple. By giving awards, the studio heads kept actors and filmmakers satisfied, respected, and, most importantly, compliant. Even the Oscar statue itself carries layers of symbolism not everyone sees. The design, created by MGM art director Cedric Gibbons and sculpted by George Stanley, features a stylized knight holding a sword, standing on a reel of film with 5 spokes, each representing one of the original branches of the Academy: actors, directors, writers, producers, and technicians. On the surface, it appears noble, but Mayer didn't choose a knight by accident. The sword was symbolic, an instrument of defense, of control. The statue wasn't just about prestige, it was about guarding the image of the film industry and reinforcing the hierarchy within it. The origin of the name Oscar is one of the ceremony's enduring mysteries, wrapped in anecdotes and contradictions. One popular account credits Margaret Herrick, an Academy librarian who reportedly saw the statue and said it looked like her uncle Oscar. Others say it was coined by Sidney Skalski, a Hollywood gossip columnist who used the name mockingly in a 1934 column to make the ceremony seem less pretentious. Regardless of its true origin, the nickname stuck. By 1939, the Academy had formally adopted it in public materials. The informal tone of the name helped humanize the award, masking the corporate structure that created it behind a nickname the public could embrace. While the Oscars quickly became the most visible arm of the Academy, its founding mission had very little to do with artistry. It was, at its core, a union-busting tool. At a time when craft unions were forming nationwide, the Academy positioned itself as an alternative that claimed to represent the interests of filmmakers, but was in fact aligned with the studios. Writers, actors, and technicians were brought into the fold under the illusion that they had a say. But the Academy's leadership structure was dominated by studio executives. When members began to push for collective bargaining rights, the Academy refused to act. Instead, workers realized they needed their own independent organizations. And so, shortly after, the Writers Guild of America and Screen Actors Guild were formed, in direct response to the Academy's failure to support labor rights. The public began to see cracks in the system as early as the 1930s. When Bette Davis lost Best Actress for Of Human Bondage in 1935, a performance widely expected to win, accusations swirled that the studio had lobbied against her. The controversy was loud enough that, By the following year, the Academy brought in Price Waterhouse, now PwC, to count the votes. It was the first step toward a more formalized, confidential voting process. But the damage had been done. The award's reputation had already been questioned, and the idea that studios influenced outcomes never quite went away. Over the decades, the Oscars transformed into something grander. The ceremony grew from a quiet hotel dinner into a global spectacle broadcast live to millions. But its growth didn't shield it from controversy. From the very beginning, the Academy struggled with representation. Hattie McDaniel, the first Black person to win an Oscar in 1940, had to sit at a segregated table at the back of the Coconut Grove. In 1973, Marlon Brando refused his Best Actor Oscar to protest Hollywood's treatment of Native Americans, sending activist Sachin Littlefeather in his place. The moment was dismissed and ridiculed by much of the audience. Decades later, hashtags like OscarsSoWhite resurfaced long-standing criticisms about racial exclusion in the voting process. Even recent ceremonies like the infamous La La Land/Moonlight mix-up in 2017 and Will Smith's onstage slap in 2022 have chipped away at the illusion of order and prestige. For all the polish, the institution still reflects the instability of the system that built it, and yet the power of the Oscars endures. Each year, a golden statue can still change lives. Winning one remains the pinnacle for many in the industry, but few know or remember that it all began as a shield, a way for powerful men to stop the people under them from organizing. The Academy wasn't born to protect artists. It was created to keep them in line. Somewhere along the way, the ceremony escaped its own origin story and became a cultural juggernaut, but the foundation remains the same. So when that orchestra swells and the winner clutches the statue with shaking hands, just know the Oscar is more than a trophy. It's a symbol of how Hollywood learned to protect itself, by packaging power as prestige and by turning control into a standing ovation.